Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. I have a question for you. What if the biggest threat to your organization isn't strategy, talent, or isn't even funding, but the conversations leaders are avoiding? Look, today on the Contagious Culture Podcast, I have somebody that is a beast. She is a Chief Human Resources Officer, Audacity broker. That word, just audacity. She is an audacity broker and the author of the book, That's Not What I Said, Master Conflict with Conversational Competence. This woman doesn't just sit in HR. She engineers cultures that perform, produce, and profit with deep expertise in conflict resolution, organizational development, and leadership strategy. She helps organizations replace fear-driven decisions with confidence, results-focused action. Look, I'm excited about this conversation. I am excited that the woman of the hour, the myth, the legend is here. Before we get started, can we just introduce yourself and tell us how amazing you are in what you do?
I love that. You said, first of all, just come on and tell us how amazing you are. Let's do it for yourself. So I love it. And I have no problems with it because I tell people I am the best in the world at what I do. Now, what I don't do, I'm the most incompetent, and I'm very comfortable with both of those. And so I'm Dethra Giles. I run an HR consulting firm called ExecuPrep, and I get to go around the world helping organizations optimize their talent so they can improve performance, productivity, and most importantly, their profits.
Why is this important to you? Like when we talk about organizational success, organizational growth, and Jim Collins says it best, you have to get 95% of people on the right bus. But you're helping people do that. You're helping organizations do that. Why is this work so important?
Because that is where our money lies. I know right now, everyone is focused on AI, artificial intelligence, large language models. But right now, our companies depend on people. And that's not going away no matter how quickly AI advances. That's not going away anytime soon. And so your company's profits, your company's trajectory, your company's sustainability, it's tied to the performance of your people. And we can get people to perform marginally, which is what most organizations do. That's why they're overstaffed, because they get people to perform at their minimal level and then they hire somebody else to do the rest. If we can get companies to get people performing at their optimal level, they will be amazed at what these people could accomplish. And I'm passionate about that.
That's good. One of the things that I said in my introduction, and one of the things that I know about you, that you've said most workplaces breakdowns aren't all about talent. They're about conversations. What do leaders consistently, I guess, underestimate about the cost of avoiding some of those tough and challenging conversations?
I think leaders underestimate the cost of silence. They pretend to want people to get along. And I was in an organization the other day in Mexico working with a company, and I told them it is easier for me to get top performance from a team that does not get along than it is for me to get top performance from a team that does get along. And they were shocked. Exactly. They had the same look you had, like, wait, what? What do you mean? Because in environments where people don't like each other, they will say what needs to be said because we just here to work anyway. Let's get this work done. I don't have to pretend to like you. I don't have to do anything to make you like me. I'm not afraid of you not liking me because I already don't like you. We already don't like each other. So let's get this work done. In environments where people get along, they won't say the things that need to be said.
That's good.
They won't say to a coworker, hey, your work is a little bit lacking. Hey, you were late with that report. Because you were late, now I'm late. Now the project's behind. I try to cover for you, and cover for you turns to resentment, right? And so what I tell people is, I don't want to make you hate each other, but I want to teach you to have the conversations that's costing you money because you won't have the conversation.
Let's talk about that for a second. A lot of organizations, especially in corporate spaces, have this ideology and this culture of playing the corporate game, not really being nasty, being nice, nasty, not really saying what needs to be said. But you have a completely different approach. And you find that in your approach, actually productivity, performance, and results increase. Why do you think that is the case? And how can leaders listening in adopt that type of culture within their organization?
In a culture of conversational competence, and I'll break that down. So people ask me, Dethra, what is conversational competence? For me, conversational competence is the ability to engage in an effective and productive, it must be both effective and productive conversation when there is a high likelihood for disagreement. The reason this culture improves performance and productivity is because you're always iterating the problem. We're not trying to do conflict resolution. I tell people, as a person that specializes in conflict, I don't use the word conflict resolution. I may occasionally, but it's not what I strive for. Conflict management is what I strive for. Conflict resolution is always trying to resolve the problem so we don't have problems. Conflict management says we will always have some sort of disagreement, which is not bad, which means we're always looking at how do we do this better. It's good, but I'm not afraid to say we've been doing good long enough. I have an idea for better. And that's why this works, because we're always comfortable iterating the problem and not seeing it as a bad thing. It's just a net neutral. We disagree. Let's figure out how to get to some sort of efficacy and then move forward towards better, not towards right. I'm not trying to be right and you're wrong. We're moving towards better.
I like that. I'm not trying to be right. We're moving collectively together in unity towards better.
Yes.
What I hear in that, it requires courage. It requires a sense of boldness, and how you put it, it requires that audacity. You describe yourself as an audacity broker. And what does that audacity look like in leadership? Not in theory, but in the room when tension is high, when there is some challenges and some problems that arise.
Audacity is so key. And here I am a words person because words matter. And I believe when we misname things, we misalign ourselves to the solution for those things. And that's why I'm so key on people knowing the difference between audacity and confidence. And people will say, oh, I lack confidence. I need more confidence. No, you don't. You don't. Confidence is data. And so because we allow people and we perpetuate this idea that people lack confidence, that's why you have a person that has 5 million degrees, because they're trying to collect more data, because that's what confidence is. Oh, I lack confidence. Let me get another certification. I lack confidence. Let me get a third master's. I lack confidence. Let me go get this other. You don't need one more thing. You know what you know. You just don't have the audacity to do it. And an example I use for people is, I'm a crazy dresser. I am a shopaholic. I will put it on, and I'm not scared to wear it. And people will see me and say, oh my gosh, Dethra, I love that. Oh, that looks so good, but I could never wear it. Confidence is knowing it's cute. Audacity is wearing it.
That's good.
And many of us won't wear it. And so, to your question, as leaders, what does it look like? Audacity of a leader is to say, you know what? I can control this if you all disagree. Most leaders are so afraid of the chaos that's required for productivity, that they won't even allow it. We know the formation of a team is forming, storming, norming, performing, and then adjourning, right?
Yeah.
We are so afraid of that second phase, but the storming is probably the most critical part of the team formation. Why? Because we then establish our values, we establish our communication style and culture, and we establish what are our rules of engagement when we disagree.
That's good.
Because if we have no rules of engagement, people are afraid, and fear turns into either silence or flipping tables. And there is no in between. And the leader that can now feel audacious enough to say, you know what, let's disagree. Let's see how we handle this. Let's navigate this space, gets the team that knows how to say the thing that moves the team forward to performing.
But I don't want to create conflict. I'm that leader that says, oh, I don't want to create conflict. I don't want to create this in my organization. What am I really afraid of?
You are afraid of failure.
That's good.
The real fear is failure. I'm afraid that if people disagree, this whole project will fail and I will be a failure. I'm afraid that if people disagree, I will be seen as a poor supervisor that does not know how to manage their staff. I'm afraid that your disagreement turns into dislike, which turns into discord, which turns into a failing team. That's what I'm afraid of.
That's good. So when you think about that, though, and when that leader hears that right now, what are some, I guess, non-negotiable communication behaviors inside not those struggling teams, but those higher performing teams that have positive culture?
So here's the thing. I remember when I was in college, and I went to college, and I've been this way my whole life, by the way. And I had a roommate contract for my roommate my freshman year. We walked in, I set some things out, and I was like, let's sign a contract. And everyone around me were like, they were like, you're so mean. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that to your roommate who you never met before. We were the only room on that hall that had no falling outs. We had no issues. We never had to go to our RA. We were the only room in that hall that actually wanted to be roommates the following year. And the only reason we weren't was because I became an RA myself.
That's good.
And the reason why was because I set out from the very beginning our rules of engagement when we disagreed. So don't get it twisted. We were two young ladies coming in. I was raised as an only child. This is my first time sharing anything on a major scale. So we disagreed, but we established how we were going to disagree, and we disagreed effectively and productively, right? And so that's what I say for these leaders. Step back and say, what are the rules of engagement on our team such that I create an environment where conflict is encouraged? People don't want to hear the encouraging of conflict, but I promise you that's where the best things happen. Think about our world. Nothing in our world has happened productively without some sort of conflict that needed to happen. And imagine if that conflict were squashed. Think about the US and the civil rights movement. Without the civil rights movement, there is no 1965 where we get the right to vote, right? And so it's the conflict that causes this advancement. And that's really what we need. So there are times when people are afraid of it, but we really need to have teams where we encourage conflict. Conflict says, okay, you know what, that's a bad idea and it's going to cost us money because that's my area of expertise. But instead of having a conflict, I sit in the room and sit back while we implement a multi-million-dollar bad idea.
I just want to pause on that. A multi-million-dollar bad idea. That's good because we're implementing a multi-million-dollar bad idea because I don't want to be disliked, or I want everybody on this team to be comfortable, or I don't want to wet the bed, or I fear, or I don't want to be seen as a fit. Like all of these different thoughts in our minds that are driving terrible decisions that are costing us money, time, and resources. In your experience, though, what do some of the best leaders do differently in some of these moments?
Some of the best leaders do a few things. Number one, they encourage discord. They actually look for it. I've seen a leader, one of my leaders that I coach, so I'm going to take credit for this, but a leader I coached sat in the meeting one day and said, I need somebody to give me a reason why this won't work.
I like that.
And it was this was a multi-million-dollar project. They had their plan. They Six Sigma'd it on the board. They had the process. They had everybody ready to go. And this was go time. I'm talking about we are literally 2 weeks from go time. And the leader stood in the middle of the meeting and I said, we will not end this meeting until someone gives me a reason why this won't work. All of a sudden, hands went up. They had been working on this project for 6 months. And no one said a word.
That's good.
One question, we are not ending this meeting till someone tells me why this won't work. And multiple hands went up, made for a much better project just by asking for disagreement.
I really respect that leader, because what I hear in that is that leadership requires a sense of humility. And that there's not a lot of leaders, even ones that are listening, and we're talking about you, that are willing to ask your team, hey, what are reasons that this can't work? We get so committed and married to our own mental feeling of being innovative in our minds, but there's so many cracks in our own foundation. What do you think are some of the skills, though, that separate leaders who survive conflict from those who use it to strengthen their culture in the ways that you're communicating?
One of the things that you just said, humility and ego. Ego is, it's not all bad, but ego can be a crazy drug. And if you get high on your own supply, you are messing up, right? And so ego gets in the way. And like, for example, with this leader, I coached him to ask that question. And my coaching for him to ask that question was, when you ask it, you shut up. When you ask it, you shut up. And shut up wasn't just in be quiet. Shut up was in don't defend. We write it on the board and we address it. We write it on the board and we address it. And part of that is because people are watching to see if it's safe. So when the first person raised their hand, it became safe to raise your hand and say something. Now the first person gets to say what could fail. How does he respond? He doesn't. He says, oh, that's a good one. Let's work through that. And now everybody's like, okay, it's safe to disagree here. And so dropping ego and having humility. Now.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program.
False humility is also not good. I could be wrong. I'm not the smartest person in the room. Stop lying. You have a PhD in engineering, and most engineers don't get a PhD. We know you are the smartest person in the room. Don't play with us. Right? But the flip side of that is when I say unapologetically, I'm the best in the world at what I do. But what I don't do, I'm the most incompetent. So if you're in the room and you're finance, I bow down to you because that's my area of incompetence. That's not false humility. I'm going to tell you where I shine and I'm going to tell you where I don't, right? And that's what leaders need to make people feel comfortable doing this.
That's good. It's interesting that I've grown in my own career, and I never knew the importance of the emotional and psychological safety that has to exist organizationally. And it's the same in relationships. You know, in intimate relationships or friendships, we have to feel emotionally and psychologically and mentally safe to be able to kind of just let our hair down, or in your case, put your hair up. Or in my case, you know, it's already down. One of the things that interests me and excite me about your work is your DARE framework. Can you walk us through it? Is that okay?
Absolutely. So DARE is my framework for conversational competence. I tell people everything I do is based on the theory that makes practical application effective. And so I am a practical implementer in the world, but I'm also a faculty member. I'm also adjunct faculty. I also teach. I'm also a researcher. And so I'm always very interested in joining theory with implementation, right? And so here's what we know. Psychology teaches us that if you can increase people's likelihood of success, their likelihood of attempting goes up. So if I can ensure that you'll be successful, you'll try it more often. That's why kids, when you're teaching them to ride their bike, their two-wheel bike, they're more apt to do it when you're holding on. That's why parents hold on and then we let go and we don't tell them. Because we're like, if I told you, you would, in your mind, you're going to fail. But if you think I'm holding on, you think you're going to be successful. So you'll try because you think I'm holding on. Turns out I'm not holding on anymore. And here you are riding your bike, right? The same is true for how we do things. And that's why we get formulas in school. That's why we got the Pythagorean theorem for finding the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Not because it made geometry easy, it made our likelihood of success go up. That's why we get the formula I before E, except after C, unless it's an A, like neighbor away, because it increases our likelihood of success spelling. So when I was doing this, I was like, people need a formula that increases their likelihood of success in a disagreement. I have to create a formula because psychology tells us they'll try it more. And that's where I came up with DARE. So DARE was my formula after decades of whether it was divorce mediation, whether it was mergers and acquisitions, whatever it was. And so DARE is my motto. And DARE stands for describe, acknowledge, review, and engage. Describe versus interpret, acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences, review the narrative you've accepted as fact, and engage for conversation, not conversion.
Let me ask you this. Which part of DARE do leaders resist the most?
Oh my gosh. So the two that people resist the most, it's hard. Wait, it's hard. Okay. I know because when I do workshops on this, and I actually go into companies and implement cultures of conversational competence. So some people get a workshop that's like a keynote, a workshop, or even like longitudinal training over a year long to implement this. And I always ask people, which one is the hardest one for you? So here's what I would say. The two most consistent ones that people say are describe versus interpret and review the narrative you've accepted as fact. And I'll tell you why it's describe versus interpret is one of them. Because our brains are natural interpretation machines. Every piece of data that you get goes through a filter and you have to interpret it into something. Like you can't just look at a car coming parked down the street with the lights on and the engine running and just say, oh, that's just a car parked down the street with the engine running. Your mind has to say that car is going to be coming towards me soon, or they're waiting for someone to come out of the house. Your brain can't just leave it at there's a car right there, right? And so the reality is I don't have the same filter you have. So in conversation, I don't know what you interpreted. For example, I use this in my training session. What percent of the time is always for you? And everyone says 100%. No, it's not. When you say always, you don't mean 100%. And I've had everything from 50, I actually had someone say 10%, 50 to 90% of the time when I say always. The problem is we're using the same word, but we don't mean the same thing. And so now we get in the argument using the same words, right? And so that's key. And then the second one is review, right? Review the narrative you have accepted as fact. Why this one is so difficult is because people have a difficult time separating the truth from their truth. Prime example, My truth is, I am a tall, statuesque woman. I met Simone Biles, who's a gymnast. She is like 4 foot something. In her mind, she was like, yep, you're tall. I also met Shaquille O'Neal, who, when I met him, it looked like it hurt him to bend down and hug me. The truth is, I'm 5'6.5". My truth is, I am a tall, statuesque woman. And so when we review those narratives, we accept it as fact, it becomes, wait a minute, is that still true? One example that we all can relate to. If you Google, when did women get the right to vote, it'll tell you 1920. The reality is, because that's a reliable source. Google's reliable, right? Our facts come from reliable sources. Why should we review that? Well, if you ask my grandma, could she vote in 1920? 1930, 40, 50. She couldn't vote till 1965. Google is 45 years off for my grandma, right? And so when we talk about reviewing the narrative you accepted as fact, it's fact in my mind, right? And so why would I have to review that in a conversation? And to stop and say, you know what? The hardest facts I have to review may be about myself. I view myself as a friend because guess what? Me and those people used to be friends. I've now been promoted. The fact is, we're not on friend level anymore. I'm the person that does their performance evaluation. We used to show up late together and I would clock you in knowing that was against the rules. But now you're the boss now. We can't talk about that with you. And the fact in my mind was we the same. We still the same.
Yeah. Walk me through that transition though, because it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's been seasons in my life where I may be coming in as, in education as a teacher, and we're both peers, and then I get, moved up to an assistant principal and we're no longer peers. And then you run the district and now we're no longer peers at all. It's completely different conversation. So, tactically, could you walk us through what that either conversation looks like? Do you have to stop being friends with those individuals? That's a tough narrative or space to be able to navigate.
It's tough, and sometimes it can be lonely, right? Because sometimes the answer is, I may not want to stop being friends with you, but you may stop being friends with me. Let me give you the example that you just used. Hey, we used to be teachers together, and there were certain things we did as teachers that we know. Now, if they find out about this, we're going to get in trouble. But they're not going to find out about it because we got skin in the game. Well, now you're an administrator. And you're like, we still friends though. I can go to lunch with you all. Yeah, but at lunch is when we talk about the stuff we ain't got no business doing. That means the entire conversation would have to change because you're there. And now it's like, we're not inviting you to lunch anymore. It's not because I don't like you. It feels like you don't like me. But the reality is you cool. But what we going to talk about if an administrator is in the room with us now? Right? And so there often is a shift. This is why I tell my clients at every level, you need to assess your friendships. And are you being fair to the people who you call friend? And I had to realize for myself, when I became a leader, I went from being, we're at the phone answer together. Now I'm running the team, and now I run the division, and now I run the region. I'm not being fair to you because you need a safe space to have certain conversations. And I have to acknowledge that I am no longer that safe space to have those conversations. And it's not fair to you if I try to be.
You've had an extensive career. You've done a lot in a lot of different spaces, and that's propelled you into being able to do what you do now as a leader of your organization and really creating change within the organizations that you all partner and work with as well. But what's been your slingshot moment? What's that moment that pulled you back as either a person or a professional that has propelled you into all of the impact that you've been able to create today?
It's crazy. It was early on in my career. I actually talk about it in my first TEDx talk. So I've done 4 TEDx talks, and I talked about it in my very first one, where I talk about being an employeepreneur. And I had this breakdown moment in my office, and it was not pretty at all. But I was so ticked off because I was like the second person in my family to go off to college. And no one in my family knew what to tell me about being a professional. They were, hourly front of the line workers. And here I am. I'm the first person in my family to have an office. And the only career advice I got was go to school, get good grades, get a good job, stay out your boss's office, and don't forget you ain't white. Those were my requirements for career success. And I'm in the office thinking, hey, girl, you killing it. And I'm seeing people that were not working nearly as hard as me going up what I call the career escalator. And I'm up there. I mean, I'm fighting for every rung of that ladder and I'm struggling. I'm doing pull ups out there. And they just coasting. And I stopped and said, oh, absolutely not. I am a researcher to my heart, always have been. And I said, you know what? I'm going to study career success and figure out what it is because clearly it is not working harder. Now, be good at what you do, but working harder was not the key. And I stopped, got out of my rut and studied what it took to go up the career ladder.
With a leader that is listening right now, in the middle of, let's say, a season where they're in a hard situation or they're realizing that it's lacking alignment, what's your first courageous conversation that you would recommend them to be able to have?
So for me, the first courageous conversation would be twofold. Leaders are stuck in this precarious position. We're stuck in a position where the people we lead think that all we do is lead them. And we are just sitting around and our job is to figure out their career and get them promoted. And if we're not doing that, we are horrible leaders and we're gatekeeping. But then we're also stuck in a position where we have a job to do that includes leading people, but also that job has to get done. And then we have this third job of navigating our own career, figuring out how we move up the ladder. I would tell them, first of all, be honest that you are currently responsible for 3 jobs and doing all 3 jobs well. And then do an assessment of how well you're doing at those 3 jobs. And then create a strategy to improve the deficits that you recognize. Because sometimes we're doing one well, like I'm moving my career perfectly, but my people are suffering and my actual job duties are suffering. Or I'm doing my job very well, but my career is going nowhere and my people hate me. So figure out where your deficits are and then develop strategies to improve those deficits so you are addressing them where they need to be. And notice I say where they need to be and not equally, because they don't need to be addressed equally at every time. There are times when I'm more concerned about my career and these other 2, they're doing okay, but they're going to plateau right here. I'm not going to invest more in here because it's time for me to move beyond this. And so my efforts need to be at moving this career.
This requires a lot of unlearning.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
And
that's why that R is important. Review the narrative, you accepted this fact. It's unlearning.
Because for me, even when I hear a lot of this, it's like, what do I need to unlearn? What are some beliefs that I maybe need to stop, thinking or transforming on my end? What's one belief, though, that you believe leaders must unlearn if they want to lead at the next level?
This is something that I wish we would tell every leader, and leadership development programs, especially people that become new leaders. I wish someone would sit them down and tell them this. And so many leaders that I coach now, and I'm coaching people at the SVP C-suite level, did not learn this. When you become a leader, you are not being paid to do things. You are being paid to create things. And let me tell you what that creation looks like. So back up. For most of our career, especially early on, we get promoted and advanced and acknowledged for being good at what we do. You're a great widget maker. And so you get promoted or paid more for making as many widgets as you can. You know what? Now you're so good. I want you to be the leader of the widget makers. And no one comes back to us and says, hey, I'm not promoting you to make more widgets. I'm promoting you to be a leader. And here's what leaders do. As a leader, your sole job is to make sure your people have everything they need to operate at their optimal performance. And because you were such a great widget maker, Your job is to make more widget makers like you used to be.
That's good. It's not for you to produce more. It's for you to help other people produce more in the same way or better than you produced.
Absolutely. And as a leader, if you're not creating people that deliver at the level that you used to deliver, you haven't really done your job as a leader. And no one tells us that. And so we think, I got rewarded for making widgets. Let me figure out how to make more widgets. And now if I got people making widgets, my job is to help them make widgets. And so I'm a micromanager. Now I'm bothering them. Instead of giving them resources, I'm a hindrance. And it's like no one stops and tells us, no, your job now is to lead people to do as good or better job as you did. That's why you got promoted.
That's good. Let's do a little rapid fire exercise. I'm interested in this one. I have 3 questions specifically that I wrote down before this that I wanted to ask you.
Oh, goodness.
All right, here we go. One conversation every leader should stop avoiding immediately. Go.
How am I doing as a leader? But don't do it. Am I good? Don't ask, am I a good leader? Do you like working with me? Ask a question that requires a conversation. And here's the question I tell people to ask. Why do you stay here? And what would it take for you to leave here? What could another company or leader do to lure you away from me?
Okay. What is one phrase that leaders should take away from their vocabulary starting today?
Failure isn't an option. I hate it. I hate when leaders say it. I hate when people say it. I hate when parents say it. I hate when anyone says failure isn't an option. If failure isn't an option, it means you can only do what you know you will be successful at, and that means you will stay exactly where you are. Failure always has to be an option if you're willing to try something new, better, different.
That's good. I could have stopped right there, but I got one more. What's one daily habit that builds conversational confidence?
Going after a no. It sounds crazy, but rejection. One of the projects I give every client is a rejection project. Go after a no every single day. Why? Because it builds your muscle for having conversations that won't go your way. And that's the biggest issue with conflict. While we avoid conflict, we want to make sure the conversation will go our way. If leaders could take winning out of the equation, we would have so much better conversations with our team and encourage our teams to have better conversations.
Give me an example for that one. I'm trying to figure out like what that looks like in practical.
So very simple. I literally had one person go and ask for a burger refill at McDonald's. They were like, hey, you give drink refills. Can I get a burger refill? They're like, no. Are you asking me for free burgers? And basically the answer was, yes, I am. They're like, no, we're not going to give you free burgers. Just going and asking for something that you know the answer is going to be no for. It does 2 things: build your muscle for rejection, but also I also tell my clients, because I teach negotiations, is that no is not the end of the conversation. It's the start of negotiations. And so when we take winning out of the equation, we go for, wait a minute, what is this chasm between yes and no that I have not explored? So no, you won't give me a burger refill, but can you give me a discount on my next burger? Okay, well, we got some coupons back here. I ain't gonna say nothing. I'm gonna do this coupon for you. So it just go after something, even asking for a promotion. As I've had one client go ask for a job that doesn't exist. So they went to their boss and said, hey, I would love to be an assistant director. And they said, we don't have an assistant director position. Cool, you're right. But I think it will make your life so much easier. So what can we do between now and the next year to get this position created? And guess what? In a year the position was created, guess who got the job? The person who asked for the no.
Teacher, this is good. This is good. This is good. It's interesting because I think about so many opportunities where I could have probably went for the no, but I'm so conditioned as a leader to win in all situations. But I feel like it's limiting my mind or even potentially limiting my leadership.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you? What's next? And how can we support your initiatives moving forward?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, I am Dethra_Giles. That is DETHRA_GILES. But for all of my employeepreneurs, I tell you, you need to be finding me on LinkedIn. There I am, Dethra Giles. And next coming up will be the audio book for That's Not What I Said. If you don't have the book already, you need to get the book. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, anywhere you get your books. And even on my website, DethraGiles.com, the audiobook is coming. And then, you know what I'm excited about, Kyle, is coming up. We're about to create a video library so that organizations that can't afford to bring me or Executive Prep in will be able to get some of this training via video, so they'll be able to bring it in and license it for their team. So I'm really excited about that coming down the pipe.
I appreciate you so much. I really do. This has been phenomenal. I told you, I knew it, and I set the tone at the beginning. I knew it was going to be fire. And what made this so clear for me today is that leaders don't need scripts. They don't need slogans. They don't even need skill. They just need clarity. And they need your word. They need audacity, especially when conversations feel uncomfortable. What is the next step for a leader that is listening in right now for them to do?
I would say do a 360 assessment. Do an assessment to figure out where you are right now versus where you want to be and how people view you in that. So many leaders have not worked on their brand. And your brand, if you don't control your brand, that means someone else is branding you, and we don't want that. One of the things I tell people is you are a multi-billion-dollar organization, and your career is your product. And just like any CEO, because you are the CEO of your career, like any CEO, you have to know where your brand is in the market, what your brand is, and you have to control your branding. And so right now, ask yourself, what is my brand in the market? Most of us don't know. So that's why that 360 comes in. Ask your peers, ask your leaders, ask your subordinates. And here's the hard one. Ask someone that you don't like and you know does not like you. They are going to tell you the truth. And if you're real bold, ask a 5-year-old. They have no chill. They have no care or concern for your feelings.
Zero chill.
They will tell you the whole truth. But do that assessment to figure out what your brand is and how you need to shift it to get to where you want to be.
That's good. If you're listening right now and you've been avoiding a conversation because you don't want to rock the boat, here's the truth. Silence is already shaping your culture. The question isn't if you'll have the conversation, it's whether you'll lead it with fear or with boldness or with that audacity. I want to just thank you so much for another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. Look, send me the invoice. Send me the invoice because this has been valuable, so valuable. Thank you again, all of our listeners, for listening to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. One of the questions that we always ask is, what type of culture are you spreading? And the energy you bring is the culture you create. Make yours worth catching. We'll see you all next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.